So how do we know? How do we know that this is how the battle started? Because we actually know lots of details about how this battle between the Romans and the Jews at Jerusalem. We know how this war, lots of very intricate details about this war. And how do we know this? Because of this guy right here. Okay, so his name is Flavius Josephus, and we're going to call him Josephus for short. And you can see when he was alive right here. Okay, so during the war between the Romans and Jerusalem, he would have been in his 30s. Okay, so he's a young man. So Josephus was born a Jew. Let me tell you about this guy. He's very interesting. So he was born Jewish, but he actually defected and became a Roman citizen, and he became a very, very good buddy with the son of the current Roman emperor, the current Caesar, during the war between Rome and Jerusalem. Okay, the emperor at that time, the Caesar, was Vespasian. That was his name. His son was Titus. Okay, and Titus was the military leader of all of the Roman forces. So he was the head guy, the general of all of the Roman forces during this war when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem. So this guy, Josephus, was really, really good buddies with Titus, this military leader. Okay, he was his interpreter. He would have been his consultant to teach him about Jewish customs, okay, and what was going on in Jerusalem. He was his consultant. He also was his recorder. He was a historian. So one of his main jobs was to make records, to record everything that happened. And so he did that. And we have lots and lots of all of these writings of Josephus during this time. Before and after as well. There's lots and lots of writings of his records of historical records of what was happening. And so not only was he alive during this war, he was there. So Josephus was actually there. He was an eyewitness. And so he wrote in great detail about the entire 3.5-year war. So if you were with me last week, I actually said something incorrect. I said the war lasted 3.5 months. No, it lasted 3.5 years. So there's a lot of stuff took place during that war. And so we have great details about it. And so I've read all of this. Okay, so this is 20 pages of this written about this war between Rome and Jerusalem, okay, by this Josephus guy. Okay, so this has been so interesting because I've been reading through this and I have been comparing what actually happened. Oh, and by the way, I want to make a note that historians consider Josephus to be very accurate. Okay, he is considered to be a reliable source. Okay, for history. So I think that it is quite a treasure that we have all of this information from him about what happened during this war and these battles. Okay, so what I've done is I've read through all of this over and over and multiple times, and I have compared all of this with what we see in the trumpets. Okay, because I believe that the trumpets were happening, indicating the different things that were happening during this war when the temple in Jerusalem was being destroyed. Okay. And so I think that these trumpets are indicating the different thing. And I was able to compare it with what actually happened. And I believe that I found markers for all of the 7 trumpets. So I couldn't believe it when I started figuring, like it was about the second trumpet as I was reading this. I'm like, that matches. And so it was crazy because I've never heard anybody talk about this. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure there's lots of people who have seen this, but I've never seen it before. And so it was just eye-opening to make this comparison and to see that these trumpets that John talks about and describes in his vision, they align with the things that Josephus tells us happened in that war. Wow. And so it got to the point where I would read what John saw first, and then I would try to predict what probably actually happened in the war before I read what Josephus said. And every single time it matched up. So anyway, it'll make more sense as I go through it. Okay. So what was happening in this first trumpet was all of these war machines that I was showing you. Not only the the bow and arrows, the archers, but all of these crazy war machines that were hurling things, okay, into the city. All right, here's what Josephus says. He says the Romans had another advantage in that their engines for sieges, this is what he calls those war machines. He calls them engines like a car engine, engines for sieges, a war siege. Their engines for sieges cooperated with them in throwing arrows and stones at the Jews. And he says this attack was made upon the first day of the month of Tammuz. Okay, so this is how the battle starts. This is what we learn from Josephus, that it started with all of these war engines, these engines for sieges, okay? And it matches, I believe, this first trumpet.